What's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Victory Life Legacy Spotlight. Today, we have two guests, two standout former Virginia Tech Hokies, a legacy which Virginia Tech during the 90s and early 2000s was known for. We have the Barron family. We have Woody Barron and also his uncle Jim Barron in the house, man. And this is an honor for me because even though I'm an offensive guy, both these guys had a great career at Virginia Tech, but it's more than football for them. And I'm honored to have them both on. They're going to talk about, amongst other things, a book they have published, things they have coming up, and also we're going to reflect on their time at Virginia Tech. Jim, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. I appreciate you, having us on the platform. We're honored to be here, doing big things, and we're ready to get going.
Woody, how about yourself, man?
I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you having me on here.
Yes, sir, man. I appreciate you guys jumping on, man. I know we've been trying to work it out, and we finally got it going, man. So, before we talk about your book and your career, man, you guys both end up being defensive linemen at Virginia Tech, and you both had great careers. Jim, we're going to talk about your arena football days and all of that, but before you got to Virginia Tech, man, let somebody remind people where you from and who influenced you. How'd you even get into playing sports, man? Because you were a heck of an athlete, but a lot of people don't always remember how it all happened.
Right, right. Well, I would probably say, I kind of came up the hard way, kind of up the stairs as it relates to football. I really grew up in Boston, in the Boston area as a young child, and really in a kind of a broken kind of home situation, a little bit of dysfunction there, where my mother struggled with substance abuse. And I say these things because I know that young kids can relate to them who may be going through some of these things. So where I found my kind of solace was kind of the TV and watching football. So every chance I could get in front of the TV, it was early 80s, NBC, how they covered the games. And so I kind of grew up in that AFC East world and Dan Marino and, the Patriots. And so I just fell in love with football. And I used to watch it all the time. I was a super football fan. And that was where my love for the game came in at. And just used to play in the sandlot. I didn't have it was just really me, my mother, and my sister. She left home early as a young child. So she didn't have any brothers or sisters. I didn't have any aunts or uncles and, things like that around me. So it was really just kind of by myself and go in the neighborhood and just get with some of the older guys. And I want to play too. And, let me play and that kind of thing. So I guess I was tough enough, that they let me hang around, and play for a little while. And that was my birth into football and just kind of the physical nature of it. I wasn't kind of a kid who had a lot of self-confidence coming from, those type of circumstances. And so you have a lot of self-esteem issues, but like I was good at football. So, or at least had enough heart to be out there. So I was known as one of those things, or at least he got heart, you know what I mean? He out here and because, football is a different animal, you know what I mean? You definitely got to have heart messing around with the football field. So, or it'll be exposed if you don't. But, that's how kind of that whole football thing happened for me. And then we moved to the Chicago area and we settled. My mother kind of stabilized her life. We wound up moving to Chicago, that area, and we settled in Hammond, Indiana, which is kind of the southeast suburb of Chicago. And that's where I went to high school, and it was a kind of a lower income, working class kind of community there. With some challenges there from a community standpoint. Gang culture is big out there, and these type of things. So football just kind of kept me astray from that. Although in football, it's almost like the gang mentality a little bit, like the football team, you just kind of transfer that energy into that. And so, that was kind of how we treated it. And so we did well in high school and, kind of built the program, sort of like kind of at Tech. In my senior year, we had a good year and, that kind of thing. But that's kind of how the football, coming out of high school, I think this is important. And I want kids and young people to know this. I went to 2 different junior colleges. So I didn't concentrate on my schoolwork like I should. I was just, you could get away with it at the time, I don't even know if you would call it getting away with it, but there just wasn't the focus on the academics like I should, and it cost me athletically. I was a good football player, but schools wouldn't touch me, and I was looking like a Prop 48 or something like that. So it was like, we're not even going to take the chance on the kid. And so, but I wound up going to junior college, and I had to go to kind of do different JUCOs. And that's kind of when Todd Grantham and Virginia Tech found me to kind of plug into their system and, what they had going on, saw me possibly being a good fit for them. So it was just a lot of hard work before I got to Tech, and a lot of, bumpy roads, to get to that spot. So when I got to Tech, it was, it was big time for me as far as I was, even though I had never heard of Virginia Tech, just as far as the facilities, you know what I mean, and the atmosphere, the structure of it all, was something that I welcomed personally, and, was ready to get at it as soon as I got there. So that's kind of my football story.
No doubt. Yeah, and we're going to dive into that in just a second. Woody, you are part of, the rich tradition of the family legacy that Beamer created at Tech, which, if you take a step back, is remarkable. The Barons, the Vicks, the Edmonds, the Stromans, his younger brothers going there. So many guys. I mean, it's the Fullers. It is amazing. And Woody, when you got to Tech, man, you were, to me, the best kept secret. But before you got to Tech, talk about your childhood. You hear your uncle talk about it, but for you, how was it? Was it that same grind, or was it a little bit different for you? Talk about your journey a little bit.
Oh yeah, it was a little bit of a different avenue, but I think it was so interesting. Before I got to campus and started going to school and stuff like that, really in the whole recruitment deal, like the whole legacy aspect was not a big thing. It was obviously relevant to me because my uncle's there with me, all the trips and whatnot, and we're seeing his former coaches, teammates and whatnot. But I just had a different perspective because I grew up in Nashville, and just me and my 2 brothers, I have an older one and a younger one, just being put in different sports and different kind of extracurriculars. I've probably done every sport on the spectrum.
Really?
Growing up.
Really? Which sports?
I've dipped in a little bit of everything, man, and most of it in preparation for ball. Man. I've done basketball. We used to box. I used to swim. I used to wrestle. I used to do all kind of things, man. And a lot of that my uncle introduced me to. And so when I get to Tech after school, after high school and whatnot, I just have a different perspective. This is not a concept that was like boasted on me or glorified or whatnot. It's just legacy is, my uncle kind of showed me the ropes, and granted my route might be a little different than his. We both arrived at the same place at different times.
Yeah, no, I'm very impressed, man, because, when I talk to guys, especially, most young men, when you talk about sports, it's usually basketball, football, maybe track or baseball. I don't hear swimming and boxing. So that's very unique, and a lot of guys talk about boxing. We ain't talking about slap boxing in 5th period or the water fountain. You sound like you were doing the real boxing. You know what I mean? So, kudos to you.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
No doubt. Jim, let's talk about Tech. You said you went to 2 JUCOs, and you mentioned one of my favorite coaches. I was scared of him when I was at Tech, but I appreciate him more. You talk about Coach Grantham. When I interviewed your teammates, Cornell Brown, my teammates as well, J.C. Price, we reflected on the fact that during that era, it was much different. You could say things, you could be more aggressive verbally, you could coach with passion. Nobody was going to do a Fox 5 documentary if you were offended. I made the point in the J.C. Price and Cornell Brown spotlight that era, especially the time we were at Tech, you probably had one of the most intense yet professional, in-depth coaching staffs in Virginia Tech history, and really in college football, where you have Grantham, Almation, Foster, Sharpless, J.B. Grimes, Stonspleen, Coach Bustle. Well, at the time, Coach Bustle was coming back, Gary Tranquil, and then you have Beamer and Coach Height. So and I'm forgetting a few people, But at the end of the day, man, like what sold you? Was it Grantham? What sold you when you got to Tech?
I think, coming out of junior college, right? So there weren't a lot of options, right? So it was either some 1AAs at the time. I think Youngstown State was recruiting me, and that was Coach Tressel. They had a good program as a 1AA. And then Virginia Tech, basically, and Pitt loosely at the time. And so I knew who Pitt was. I had heard of them. And Virginia Tech was kind of new to conference, but Coach Grantham, I'm just, it was his recruiting, and to me, it was like, all right, well, who do y'all play? What conference are y'all in? And as soon as they kind of said Miami and the Big East and Syracuse and some of who the other ones in, I think that was probably big for the university just in general to start pulling recruits that affiliation with the Big East at the time to even probably sink a lot of in-state guys, you know what I mean? That probably helped their cause. So that kind of helped some of the teams that they were playing, and the options were like slim, and it was like, all right, well, these people really want me, I need to go ahead and sign and come here. And so when I signed out of junior college and got to Tech, it was like a moment in time, obviously, that the program was being built. So a lot of those coaches that you're talking about were, on the come up, Beams included, right? So everybody's passionately, going at it, you know what I mean? And trying to kind of claim their stake into, college football at the time, right? So, and us as players as well. So it was a different time. I don't know if anyone's better or worse, right? So, you can teach without yelling, right? And, going crazy on people. And I'm learning that now from having my own kids or having to learn that. And but I appreciate that too, right? So it toughened us. It made us a certain kind of way. It made you thick-skinned. The accountability level was there, at least for us, in that moment. And that's how we learned. That's how we were taught, and what we were used to. So just getting there in that atmosphere, of the program being built, the class that I kind of came in with, JC and Killer and Jay Holmes and I know I'm Trent. All right, we'll see you later. Trent, Bass, and some of the other guys that were on those senior class, Hank Coleman, Law Lewis. I can keep on going on and on with those guys, but they were really like the guys, the cornerstone guys that were helping to build the program and change the program around. Obviously some of the younger guys, Cornell as well. And I'd be remiss too, Kim Brown, when I got there, he was an awesome player. Maurice DeShazo, obviously Free, and those guys, that class there, I played on with that team. They were coming off the Independence Bowl. So, Tech was on the upswing and it was, I felt fortunate to be kind of getting in, and I came in kind of out of shape, not prepared, not ready, just kind of cocky in my own head. And it cost me, and I had to kind of play out of position my couple years there. But it's about sacrifice too, right? You got to do what you got to do. And I kind of just accepted my role. I didn't bitch about it, or excuse my language for a lack of better words. I didn't complain about it, and just kind of fit into my role when it was, it was going to be a tough sleigh in the head. I had Wave ahead of me. JC was playing on the other side. There were good players around.
Yes.
So it was like, and I'm sure they were looking at me like, where you think you coming to do? You know what I mean? Like, what spot you think you about to take? That kind of thing. So, but it was all love at the end. When they seen the type of work and how committed I was to, winning and, to winning ultimately, and changing my personal situation, it all meshed well. So,
no question.
That was love.
No question. Woody, same question, man. Like for you, you had the distinct privilege of choosing Tech after a lot of that groundwork was done by the previous classes. The expectations when you got to Virginia Tech were much different from when your uncle got there. You got there was about conference championships and playing in BCS or, at the time, New Year Day Bowls or whatever. But, how did you choose Tech? What sold Tech on you, and how was it like, following not so much in your uncle's footsteps, but just being part of something that's much bigger than all of us? What drove you to choose Tech?
Yeah, I think a lot of the A lot of the sale was done when I was younger, witnessing all of the, they did a lot of BCS appearances, and when I first got to watching football, which was like late middle school years, I'm watching them go to like Orange Bowls and be nationally relevant and competing with teams on primetime stages and whatnot. So I think by the time recruitment came, like there was only one school I wanted to go to. But I think one of the things that kind of solidified me making that choice is that I saw kind of the spectrum of what you could be going to a school like this. I see like when I was in high school, like Tyrod and Cam Chancellor and like David Wilson, like that was the group, and they're playing these teams. They're top 10 opponents every year, big time stages. But then as it's getting closer to me go there, they kind of quieted down a little bit. You got Logan Thomas there now, kind of that group, and they're not going necessarily to the same caliber of bowl games. And so I'm just looking at the logo like, all right, this is a place where I can go and I can make it what I want it to be. I can kind of carve my own experience out of it. But then there's also that knowledge there from a more successful time, if you will, because Bud Foster's still there. My position coach, Charley Wiles, is still there. Like the bones are still there. And now I can make out of this experience whatever I want to.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna stay here with you, Woody. What do you know about your uncle's legacy and the defenses that they were known as Death Row, and it has been well documented and talked about, and it'll never be talked about enough because I've always said, even the guys before us in the late 80s did a great job laying down the groundwork, but 95 is the year I point to for Virginia Tech football becoming what it is now as far as the expectations and why people expect every year them to be good. What do you remember? What do you know about, Jim Barron, your uncle, Waverly Jackson, Jeff Holland, Lawrence Lewis, Hank Coleman, J.C. Price, Cornell Brown, in that defense, the linebackers, Myron Newsom. You mentioned you were young. Do you really recall how good they were? There was just to add, there was a picture I posted, and I may do it as we run this video, as we prepare for it, where we were playing UVA, and they put up a picture of how we had 4 defensive linemen, Hank, JC, your uncle, Jim Barron, and I forgot the other one. And they all had more than one interception along with sacks. I mean, we had defensive linemen getting sacks and interceptions, and your uncle scored a touchdown in the Sugar Bowl and flexed on everybody with the big shoulder pads.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that? Are you really familiar with that legacy, and what kind of influence did it have on you as far as when you watching all of that?
Yeah. So definitely as it was happening, I mean, I missed that group, that generation as it was occurring. But as I grew up, like nobody's heard more tech stories about Jim Barron than I have. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody's heard more. I picked up the fumble in the Rose Bowl or in the whatever bowl, touchdown, Sugar Bowl. Yeah, I've heard them all. And then I get to tech and everybody's reminiscing. They're telling me things like, you don't even know. And I'm like, guys, trust me, I've seen the whole thing. And so I had that appreciation. They're not going to let you disrespect the culture when you go there. I don't care how long it's been removed. I get there, the lunch pail is still there. Like I said, Coach Foster is still there. Like I talk to my uncle very often. And so I'm able to see like where the foundation of this came from. But then more so than that, like when I was starting to watch football, my uncle was still playing professionally. So I was able to actively see what the standard was. Like these aren't just stories that are irrelevant and happened back in my day. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, this is how I got here. This is the route that I took. And then I'm able to directly apply that to see what's going on at Tech. And then when I get there, it's a no-brainer because you see how hard it is. The lunch pail changed hands on defense like week to week based on, dedication and production and performance and all these super difficult things to achieve. And it's not really until you surprise yourself and get to put hands on it for the first time that you get to appreciate like how difficult it was and how much of the struggle that these guys talk about was actually real and still is pretty real. It's a different group of guys, younger kids me and my uncle went there 20 years apart, but I feel like the standards, you know, they didn't change. They don't go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And the standard, you know, I remember, you know, for me, I was there. I'm a few years younger than your uncle, but I remember being in practice and having to go against them guys. And Jim, let's talk about that special year, that special time, the 95 and 96 season, but more so the 95 season. Um, the 95 season, as you've seen me post on social media and every few years, media guys reflect on it because it was just such a remarkable season, especially we had a tough loss on a Thursday night, I believe, to Boston College in Lane Stadium, 20-14. And then we follow it up and we played Cincinnati in a horrendous rainstorm the entire day. And I can remember, you know, we lost 16-0. The fans were booing. We're 0-2. And I remember being a young guy on that team, just being man, wow, we should not be 0-2. And it's been well documented, but you know, unless you were in that locker room, people don't realize the leadership that took place. For me, that was such an influence on me. Obviously, I'm not your nephew like Woody, but even as your teammate, more so like your younger brother, you and even the guys on offense, Chris Malone and TJ Washington and Bill Conity and everybody, you and JC, you guys stepped up. What do you remember about that game, that locker room, and that whole week? And mind you, we're 0-2, and we have Miami coming to Lane Stadium, and yeah, that's when they really were the U, and they had Ray Lewis,
Right.
And we had never beaten Miami. What gave you the confidence to tell everybody to stick together and we're gonna win 10 straight? I mean, that is kind of, I mean, I don't get. I'm out there.
I'm gonna tell you exactly what it was. It was naivete, right? So you know, I didn't know no better, right? So you know, and then a lot of times that it's a mind game, right? So it's all in your mind. You know, you can defeat yourself before you even go out there and play the game. You know, so I didn't know we weren't not supposed to win. You know, the next week. You know, I just knew we was 0-2, but we had to win basically, and so. It was some of that coming out, you know what I mean? Like we gotta get to getting or it's gonna be a long year, you know? So, and you know, just the preparation, right? So I'd be remiss not to talk about Mike Gentry and when you talk about the 95 season, right? So all of that, and even those seniors that I was just like a piece to the puzzle, right? I don't, you know, I don't claim no type of, you know, it was a group thing, right? It was a big group effort, and it was a lot of great men. That's why it's hard to name drop because you know you're gonna forget a lot of people, right? Yeah. There was a lot of great men associated with that, upper class or lower class. Brian Edmonds, Keon Carpenter. We can go on and on. Rich Bowen, scout team guys. You dig what I'm saying? That pushed and worked hard. You dig what I'm saying? And pushed us. Like you know, it was real out there. You know yourself. You know what I mean? And that was all part of the mixture. And you come to see that, like really, this is what success is about. You know, the work you have to put in. So that's kind of what I took from it, kind of the hard work and, you know, just appreciate. I appreciated it a lot more in the moment and then after I left, right? When we were on the run, it was fun. It was a great thing. And, you know, we made history. But then after I left and you get to be part of some other things and other styles, and you know how things are built. And I was a part of some other successful things, but it was just the consistency, something about the consistency that was provided at Virginia Tech, you know, that it glued to me, and that's something that I always wanted, and you know, and I always respected and you know wanted in my personal life. So that kind of provided that for me, and the preparation through Mike Gentry just, you know, it gave me some confidence to. You know, and it was my last hoorah. So yeah, I had to kind of be bold about it, you know what I mean? And try to, not that it was anything else but naivete, you know, than that. So
before I get to Woody, I do want to also point out that, you know, I remember like it was yesterday, I was a redshirt freshman and you and the seniors, the African-American leaders on the team, unfortunately, we were going through some of the same issues we're going through now in 2020 with racial profiling, discrimination, police brutality, and other issues in the Black community throughout the country. And Minister Farrakhan was having, at the time, the inaugural Million Man March. And we were in the midst of a winning streak, and we still had a chance to win the conference, which subsequently we did win the conference. and play in the Sugar Bowl. But you and the leaders was like, hey, we got to go to this. This is history. We need to go. And I remember I don't even know how I got in the room. It wasn't only like it was a handful of us, but all the black guys on the team were going.
Right.
You were the guy that spoke to Coach Frank Beamer about, hey, listen, we got to go to this. We need to go together. We need to see this. We need to be in DC. This is bigger than football, but I promise you, when it come back. And I remember thinking, man, what is going on? Like, I didn't know how Beamer was going to respond, but I'm watching you as a youngin, even though I'm on the team. I'm a man, but I'm a young man. I'm watching you talk to Frank Beamer, and basically you were asking him for permission, but not asking.
Right.
You were like,
right.
this is something we need to do, and we're going to go. Right. And again, Beamer's all class. He was down for the call.
Exactly.
And he was all for it. But do you remember that as well?
Yeah, it was incredible. You know, it's funny that you bring it up, because that was kind of one of the most memorable things about that season. And I think that helped. We had started our run, but I think we were like maybe 3 or 4 in a row. Yeah. And then we ran up on a bye week. Yep. And just so happened the bye week was the Million Man March week, you know, and just, you know, obviously we had a lot of great guys, with a lot of character in that locker room. And it was very important for us to bring our collective energy up to DC. And so I believe we came down to Jameson. It was a Sunday or something. And, you know, we wanted to talk to the Beams, you know, a group of us. It might have been about 20 of, who knows? It was maybe about 20 of us. We had got together at Cochran or whatever it was. And, you know, we want to speak to the Beams. So we go over to the athletic department or whatever. And, you know, we have whoever put in the call. The Beams got to get out of his bed, you know, drive down to the facility and talk to us about what, you know what I mean? And so he gets in there and, you know, mind you, I might be taking on the role of, you know, the voice or whatever, but, you know, it's like talking to your dad, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, the Beams coming in the room and, you know, and so it's, you're talking big, but, you know, inside, you know, you kind of please pops type, you know, type feeling inside, you know what I mean? So, but like you said, he was all class, probably had a lot more foresight. It just spoke to the leverage of unity for me, you know, and how powerful unity was. Outside of him being class in the moment, you know, but what else was he gonna say, right? You know, you on a run, right? Yeah. You about to go on a run, you got your whole team dang near in the locker room. You dig what I'm saying? I think his exact words were, would you guys want us to get you a bus?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah. I think he offered to get us a ride up there. We were like, no, we good. We'll get up and get back type thing. And he trusted us. Can you imagine that? Yeah. Like just the foresight in him, you dig what I'm saying, and what that meant to us in the moment because he could have easily bulldogged and probably, you know, shook a lot of us up and fractured the group and, you know, and this, that, and the other, and no, y'all can't go, and, you know, this, that, and the third. But it meant a lot to us. That experience in itself, probably one of the more powerful things that I've ever been a part of in my life, you know, and the leverage of that unity, not only of the team, but of the men and women that were in DC that day, because there were a lot of girls that made it to that trip, you know. Yeah. Your wife might have even been one of them that got in the car that day, you know, and rode up. But
I didn't know it yet, but I remember the other.
You didn't know it, but I'm just saying there were a lot of, you know, young ladies like for the movement, for the cause type thing that were being a part of it. So it was just, you know, it was a powerful movement. It talked about the power of unity. When you saw like Northwestern come at it years later and try to approach union membership, they're talking about the equity in football and kind of the disparities there and making it equal. And what the boys did in Missouri when I believe it was Mike Brown and one of these other killings that happened, the guys in Missouri, they were ready to, you know, sit down and they weren't going to play, and they forced the university's hand to do some things. And so, but just, you know, demanding the right value for yourself, you know what I mean? And that you're valued the right way and that your voice is heard and matters, you know, and respected. Man, that was a powerful moment. And I believe there's a movie in there somewhere. If we if we work on it, we can get that together. It was an amazing time.
Yeah, the 30 for 30 has been approached to me, even though I'm not, you know, that kind of guy. I can't do all that, but I think it's a great story. I think that season is a great story.
That's a fact.
Woody, I didn't play with you obviously, but let's talk about your time at Tech. Let's talk about, your memories, your brotherhood. What was when you were playing? You mentioned Logan Thomas, some of those guys. Talk about, playing for Coach Wiles, who your teammates were, and what were some of your fond memories as far as games and bowl games or matchups. Let's reflect on your time at Tech.
Yeah, man, there's so many different routes that you could go with that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a million football memories, but just going to college. I'm from Nashville. Blacksburg is 6 hours away.
Yep.
Just being out there, I remember there was a lot of decisions that I had to make for myself for the first time as an adult, and it was really. I could get advice through phone calls from my family, like my support system, but really it was just on me to start doing, introductory things to adulthood. Like I had to start paying my first bills and like learn how to travel on myself, which in the grand scheme is, it's kind of rudimentary now. But I just remember having to mature in Blacksburg. Like a lot of my memories of the transition are Fox Ridge, the apartment complex over there, or Mary, places you gotta, I grew up. I feel like I grew up again in Blacksburg. And so on the other side of that coin, just my football memories, man, is the same thing. I remember walking in, I enrolled in January, and first thing we had to do in the weight room after every not every lift, but like after the arm day, they got you doing a minute bar hang as a team.
Oh yeah, bar hang.
Yeah, Gentry got you doing bar hangs, man. It's my first bar hang. Listen, I just got there. It's January. It's still cold outside. Lester, the old equipment manager, gave me like too big a gear and stuff, and I couldn't hang on. I fell like twice, and people are snapping on me. They hot. You know what I'm saying? It's just a bad look. And it's nobody around there. Like my family's not here. It's just me. It's just stuff you got to deal with. And so you just fast forward to the time where I came out, and it's just such a different perspective on what it is. Like it's almost a different school entirely. Just how I looked at it when I first got there to like how I looked at it walking away. I feel like, I checked a lot of boxes as far as sports goes and football, did a lot of things there with the team and then as an individual, but then just, growing up as a young man, I just felt like Blacksburg did a lot for me in that light.
You mentioned the coaches. I talked again about the coaching staff that was there my 5 years at Tech and a few years I was there with your uncle. But you had the distinct privilege of playing for some, not all, the same coaches. You played for the legendary Bud Foster, Coach Wiles, who I love dearly, as well as Bud Foster, love them both, and also Beamer. For you, being on the defensive side of the ball, you were a defensive lineman like your uncle that played with a high motor. You were a little bit undersized, but you actually did a great job in your career playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage, reestablishing the line of scrimmage, getting penetration. You were disruptive. What was it like playing for Wiles and Foster? I mean, did you feel they were able to develop you and also get you to play with that sense of urgency that defensive linemen need to have?
Yeah, it was probably the best thing I got from them early, because I didn't interact with Bud a ton, the whole different position group, but just in our film room and then with Coach Wiles, they show you what the standard is very early, probably from those first bar hangs, like down there with Gentry. You just see like what the standard is, and it's impossible that they're going to change the standard to accommodate your current ability. You're going to have to increase your ability to meet the standard. Mm-hmm. And so I got that directly from Wiles, and I'm just seeing the guys in the film room, like some of these faces I had only seen on TV. Like I don't even have my legs underneath me. Like I'm kind of starstruck. And then it's also just a completely different physical game. But then indirectly, I got it from Bud too, who's, the captain of the ship. You don't have to explain Bud's pedigree or his resume at all. You know who he is. I knew who he is before I got there. And so from the two of them, in addition to my uncle, just, realizing that there's a different standard there and you're going to have to meet it, it's probably one of the best things I was able to pull away from my time there, and was introduced to pretty early, if not immediately, getting on campus.
For sure. Jim, I want to ask you this question before we move into your postgraduate career at Tech. But when you reflect on your time at Tech, this is a question for me because I've never asked you this question. Was there a particular moment or game? You mentioned, I mentioned me and Woody, that touchdown you had in the Sugar Bowl, where the ball we thought was dead and you scooped it up and you scored, and you flexed on everybody. Is that a memory for you? Was there another game, Miami? What games or memories stand out on the field when you just think back, man, this was just a blessing. This was just euphoric for me. Is there a game that comes to mind, a moment?
You know what? And to be completely 100 about it, a lot of times I think about the things that got away.
No, that's real. That's real. That's kind of like I am.
Yeah, like, man, I could have did this, or I could have did this, or I could have did that. Not saying that I'm so appreciative of where I'm at in my life and how far I've came and the things that I've been exposed through football. Like, I wouldn't change any of it, right? But you still think about some of those things. But obviously, scoring in the Sugar Bowl, that was awesome. And just those, I think guys talked about it, those bowl practices. It's, the football is just, it's more about the camaraderie, right? And, the combat of it, right? It's a combat sport. It is what it is. It's a heavyweight championship fight. You better be out there and you better be ready to go and fight for those, 4 quarters or 12 rounds or whatever. But as far as the relationships and, those things, the laughs, and, the joking and these type of things, those are the things that, you miss the most, you know what I mean? Because it's really, like I said, it's kind of like when you relate it to gang culture, why people get involved in those things is just about having some type of a connection with somebody, wanting to be wanted, you know what I mean? And want to be accepted by someone. So just being in that group and being accepted into that group of men, of great football players, a bunch of clowns, you know what I mean? A university on the upswing at the moment, just a moment in time, that's really what I remember the most. And what, the girls associated with, college and success, you dig what I'm saying?
And
having success, that kind of thing on campus. And just those times, hanging out together. And the football is what it was. I played a lot of football and it was great times, great coaches. Like I said, the consistency of that staff, man, you dig what I'm saying?
No doubt.
Like, those things are like, people don't understand and value those as much as they, 6-6 ain't looking all too bad right now. You dig what I'm saying? With the consistency there, you dig what I mean? So, but, not to talk, to downplay anything that's going on now. I support Tech 100%. And I want to see them do well, no matter who's coaching. And I don't wish ill on nobody. I want success for the university, but we are from that era of accountability, right? And we want to see the right things happen. So, that's just kind of what it meant to me, just in a general way.
Jim, man, when you talk about laughs, what I remember, man, obviously I've said this on social media, I've said this in articles, and I've said it even tonight in our show. But I remember you talking about laughs, the brotherhood. I remember, you and Hank and Law Luke, y'all just roasting everybody. Nobody was safe, and then on top of it, the swag. I remember, Hank had the license plate 160 man, SIXY. And then you had Big Light, and we joked about light-skinned guys trying to take over and all of that.
Yeah.
Cornell, everybody just got on everybody, but at the same time, it was just such a brotherhood, man. Let me ask you this though: when you talk about Tech, and you remember some of the things you could go back and change as far as when you reflect on a shortcoming. When you look back on your career, I interviewed Ace Custis, and he said now that he's coaching, he's a special assistant at Virginia Tech. He wished he could go back because he didn't work as hard as he thought he did. He wished he could have learned how to have better range on his shot, be a better shooter, put more work in. Do you have that kind of mindset in regards to a part of your game, or maybe something you didn't appreciate as much?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'd say one of the biggest things that probably held me back as a player is that when I did sign with Tech. I kind of alluded that. And I didn't report till January, kind of like Woody did. And like that whole summer and off season, like I just didn't prepare myself at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't get ready at all. You know, not like I should. You know, not like I was used to. I came from a decent high school coach. He was a good man, Rob Hanson. He kind of showed me the way of preparation. So I knew the playbook on what to do. I was just ripping and running and, you know, thought I knew everything and it's going to be a piece of cake. Like football's been a piece of cake for me my whole life. You dig what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just going to be the next piece of cake I eat. But it wasn't like that when I got there, right? So, and it had to humble me real quick. But thank goodness for Gentry, you know, and getting into that situation and what y'all had cooking at Tech at the time. And, you know, it just helped get me back to where I needed to be, you know, and so, but I had to have some sacrifice while I was there. I had to play out of position, frankly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wasn't the biggest guy in the world. I was recruited as a defensive end. I played defensive end in junior college, you know. So, you know, I easily could, even though we had depth there, obviously we had depth at tackle. So if I'd have came in shape, I would have probably had to play outside, you know, or had to compete outside for some playing time. But it worked out the way it was supposed to. And sometimes it never works out how you think it's going to work out either, right? So, and so it's just, you know, just sticking with it, you know, being committed, you know, being committed to what you're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean? If there was nothing else I was committed to, it was the football. You know what I mean? And, you know, at a certain point, when I got to Tech, I was all the way in. You know what I mean? I had bought all the way in, and it was time for me to try to, you know, carve my own niche out. And but if there was something I would change, it was just, you know, my preparation going to Tech. When I got to Tech, I did everything probably I was supposed to do. You know, I had some injuries along the way and things that might have slowed me down. But while there, I gave it 110, and it turned out well for me.
Absolutely. Woody, similar question. You know, when you reflect on your career, you talked about how you became a man, you became self-sufficient, responsible. You know, you learned about how it was important to be an adult and taking responsibility. But as you reflect on your career there, and me being an observer and a fan of your game, you know, I thought you had a great career. I could always rely on your motor running. You know, I remember your name being called a lot. But again, you know yourself better than anybody, including your uncle and your family members. Is there something you wish, man, I could have done this a little bit better, or now that I look back, I see this. When I pose that question to you, what do you see or hear or think about?
I think you could. I mean, you could kill yourself chasing all the what ifs. You know, I got a laundry list of them. I'm sure if I ever look back, you know, they're there. But I always been raised around that saying that when you know better, you do better. You know, so yeah, absolutely. If I could go back to 19-year-old Woody with the knowledge that I have now, things would look a lot differently. But if I did that, I wouldn't be who I am right now. And that's a cliche. People say that all the time, but it's the truth. There's nothing that I look back like, if there is something I look back on and I say, man, I wish I could change it. If I was given the opportunity, I wouldn't, because all the mistakes are like things I may have missed out on of just turning into lessons. And I like who I am now. You know, I appreciate that I had to be wherever I was to get where I am now. So definitely no regrets. You know, there's always money left on the table. Even if you're the best at it, it's always chips left on the table. But I mean, I got appreciation for where I've been, and I really like where I'm going.
Absolutely. Speaking of where you're going, I'm going to talk to you guys. We're going to talk about the book you guys published and hashtag Just a Gobbler, which I'm just so impressed with, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But when you were done with your time at Virginia Tech, Woody, what did you end up doing? Did you get any invites? Was it arena football, CFL, NFL camps, or did you just, you know, move on? What happened with your career after you were done with Tech?
Yeah. So like, just because you mentioned the book was kind of got introduced to the book during my senior year. So there was kind of some overlap there with football. Graduated in 2016, 2017, I was with the Cowboys for a year. And then after that, I spent 2 seasons up in Canada. Our season got canceled this year, or it would have been my 3rd season. And so I'm under contract with the Montreal Alouettes right now. And Corona's just got me exploring every avenue that I see any interest in. And that's where I'm currently at.
Awesome. Jim, I remember when I was in my later part of my career, I was getting ready to be done with Tech. I think it might have been my last 2 years, my last year. You came back to get a workout in, and you were with the Bears. And you had came back and you were getting your workout on, and you were talking to me and some of the other linemen, offense and defensive linemen, about stuff to do. And I remember you saying, make sure you work on flexibility in your hips and being able to move out in space. You were just hitting us with, as you always do, gems and knowledge. When you were done with Tech, what happened? Now I know, and I'm sure people that followed your career, you ended up being one of the best linemen ever in Arena Football League history. You were amazing. I played 1 year of Arena. That year I played, it went on strike. So I played Arena 2 for the Norfolk Nighthawks. I didn't get to your level. But I remember watching you play and seeing you and my guy, Ahmad Hawkins and Silas Demery. And I mean, you almost made Arena Football like must-see TV, which was kind of crazy at that time because it was an afterthought until that era you guys played in. But what happened after you graduated from Tech? What invites? How'd you end up getting into Arena Football?
My professional career pretty much went kind of the same way my collegiate career went. I came out as a free agent and signed with Detroit coming out of Tech in 95. So I attended camp with Detroit in 96, and I just wasn't mentally ready for that experience, to be honest with you, and got into that situation and got released. And so, after being released there, I went back home, back to East Chicago where my family was living at the time. And, it was a tough situation. I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I would be remiss not to mention this Hokie here. His name is Tony Page. He was an agent at the time and a great player at Tech, played with the Miami Dolphins for a lot of years, but he represented me at the time. And, but basically Tony believed in me and, he called me back out to DC and I kind of stayed with him and his partner at the time. They just kind of put me up and looked out for me, bro. And it really made a difference in my life. So that's kind of that legacy Hokie love thing taking place there too, right? So,
hold on, Jim. Jim, I do want to ask you, just for people watching and even myself, you mentioned you got to Detroit and you weren't mentally there. I mean, was it just a transition from college or you just weren't dedicated?
Well, right. So I transitioned. I went from playing defensive tackle to playing back outside, right? So that's an adjustment, right? And, just kind of the whole, just kind of falling into line and not pushing the line, right? That whole thing, not trying to be disruptive. But that's exactly what you need to be. You know what I'm saying? When you try to make it as a free agent. You dig what I'm saying? And so I had to learn that the hard way, right? So I had to go play Arena for 2 or 3 years. You dig what I mean? And, and you're going to learn real quick, Arena 2, Arena, anything inside of those walls, those padded walls, you're going to learn quick. You're going to have to, it's a quick learning curve. And so it just speeded it up. Arena gave me the opportunity to speed it up. My first camp with Detroit, I didn't figure it out until it was too late in camp, and then I started to make a few plays. But by then, your fate has been sealed. You're not drafted, so, on to the next one. So, then I went and played Arena for a couple years. To tell you the truth, my first Arena team that brought me in for a workout, because I had been working in DC, like I said, Tony hooked me with a couple people that he had knew around Maryland and got me a couple jobs. And I stayed working. I was working out with Del Rico still at the time, some more Hokie love. We would go up to the old Cole Field House in Maryland and run around, do some running drills and work out. So we kind of kept that gent thing going. It's hard to keep that going after you get out of school, right?
Hard.
When you don't have that over you. And but we were able through work to kind of stick together and, you know, still work out a little bit. I thank God for that brother as well. But yeah, those brothers looked out for me. And then, you know, I wound up, I went to a workout for one team and they literally told me I wasn't good enough. You know, they like, well, you know, you're not good enough to make the team. It was the New York team at the time. And then Nashville wound up calling. And I'm like, look, you just, can I get into some pads? And, you know, and they got me into some pads and kind of the rest was history. I played 3 years there, got a call back to play with the Bears, played a practice squad year there, then came back. It was money going on. The whole Million Man March thing led into our organizing the Arena Football League players at the time. So we kind of, you know, fought for our collective bargaining rights, negotiated a contract. And, you know, there was an era of arena football where we really did well from a financial standpoint and shared in some of the equity and things that were going on with the league. And so it was just a great league and, you know, time to be a part of, to play professionally. You know, you're in the 1 percentile of football players. I don't give a care what level of football you're on professionally. When you're in that, you know, it's a tough world to be in. You're in the human exchange business, you know what I mean? A lot of injuries and things of that nature going on. So, you know, I was fortunate to come out, you know, pretty much from an injury standpoint, not too bad, and, you know, had a great career. And, you know, it's all, this might sound cliche-ish too, but it literally is about the other guys that you play with, right? When you're playing football, you can't play one-on-one football, right? You can't.
No doubt.
You can't do it, right? You just can't. So, you know, it's all about what everybody is out there sacrificing. Like, it ain't no James Barron or Deion Sanders or whoever else you want to name without the other guys running around on the field with them. So, you know, that's what football, like life in football, right? As much as we can, like, that's what, you know, if we could live like we live on the football field, you know, that we would hope to aspire to, the world that the football field is, you know, the accountability and the all the things that encompass success on the football field is kind of, you know, the microcosm of how we should be living in the real world, right? And so, you know, those are the things that I just appreciate about football. You know, if I had to, but I do tell people all the time now, and I got 3 young boys myself, small kids, like, I don't know about football, bro. You know what I'm saying? I love it, you know, but, you know, I love it, but it was more of a necessity for me personally, you know. I probably would have kept holding that baseball bat, you know what I mean? And, you know, maybe shooting the basketball, shot me some more jumpers or something, you know.
My son's a hooper, so I know exactly what you're doing. I'm like, you know what? Great choice, man. And speaking of great choice, man, I want to talk about Just a Gobbler, which is a great choice. Written by you, James, and Woody, and Henry Taylor. Just a Gobbler is a book, man. And let's talk about this book, what you've been doing with it. Woody, I'll let you go first. And you said it's the story of you, the story of me, the story of Hokie. So I think it's very remarkable. I remember, Jim, you told me about this. You sent me this as we were preparing. Yeah, actually, way before we prepared for this interview. And I put it out on Twitter, and people were like, hey, how can you purchase it? But before we talk about how you can purchase it and where you can get it, let's talk about, Woody, you can start off the premise of it, what drove you guys to become authors, which I'm in love with, because at the end of the day, I tell people all the time, athletes are so much deeper than athletes. And what that means is their legacies, there's a journey there. That, you know, entrepreneurs, businessmen, fathers, leaders, speakers. We put our athletes in the box, and when they step out and become proactive, whether it's becoming actors, you know, you have another Hokie brother, Manny Clemente, that played with me, and he has a book, his autobiography, and you know, he's been on the spotlight, and I want to showcase that. Woody, how did you guys come up with it? You know, and what is the book about? And you know, what are you proud about? Talk about hashtag Just a Gobbler.
Hashtag Just a Gobbler, man. What an incredible project to have my hand on. And I really got to, to tip my hat off to my uncle and then to Henry in the same light. They brought the idea to me. This is during my senior, this is probably like my senior spring. This is like 2016 in the springtime somewhere, just with the idea of, hey, let's do something together that really, gives us a hand on this legacy concept, gives us a chance to be able to come back to Blacksburg and be relevant in the community and stuff. And I'm in the middle of my last season at Tech. Like, I don't really have a lot of time to be putting into something for post grad. And so they really did a lot of the legwork and brought me in on a lot of the edits and rewrites and really finalizing the book before we had any, illustrations or images like that. And then right when I got out, it was pretty much published.
Looks like, yeah, he's back.
You said it was published, Woody?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can. You said it was published?
Yeah, right when I got out of Tech, it really fell in line as far as the illustrations were in, and it was published, and it was stored and ready to be shipped and whatnot. And I couldn't be more proud of this thing, man, because like you said, athletes are so much more than, just objects to be consumed on whatever day that your favorite sports plays. There's so much more to them, and one of those things is art. There's art in everything. Football and basketball are different canvases, different versions of art. Writing is an art, visual art like painting and illustration. And one thing that I'm so proud of this book is that it brings all those things together. You know what I'm saying? It's got this nice script and narrative that is easy to follow for the young kids that we read to, but then also, like, I'll be reading it and I'll be like, dang, man, that hits me just like it's probably going over your head, but like it's relevant to me at my age and whatnot. And what we do with it right now, for the most part, with the exception of 2020, is, different. We line up different readings at elementary schools. A handful of them have been in Blacksburg, just around games. I've gone to do a handful of French schools up in Montreal, where I work, and a couple in Nashville. And it's really just spreading the message. #JustAGobbler is about self-confidence and knowing that you don't have to compare yourself to other people to see value. You can.
I love it.
Yeah, like, football, you got 50 guys on the team. You know what I'm saying? My personal value has nothing to do with the other 49. I can be bright and they can be bright as well. You know what I'm saying? And the book really, really hammers that in. And I get a lesson on that every single time I read it. And I love it. And I'm so proud of it.
Just again, it's just amazing. I mean, I'm proud of you. Even if I didn't play with your uncle and you didn't play at Tech. We got to, and that's why I want to promote this. This is your legacy spotlight, but we got to make sure people understand the impact. Jim, similar question, man. To me, being like one of your mentees, even though you played defense and I played offense, you always used to drop gems and jewels. And even if, we were joking, you would, say, hey, but don't forget this. I remember all the conversations we had. So when I found out that you and Woody became authors and had the book, I was like, I'm not surprised, man, because you were always insightful. Even if it was like some drama popping off, you would be that voice of reason. And then sometimes it was a problem for the other person. But all jokes aside, with all seriousness, man, talk about what this book means to you, and what Woody mentioned. You came to him, you and Henry Taylor. What exactly came about and
Well, Henry was a friend of mine who I played with, a former teammate and a close friend of mine. And he had a concept that some brothers were doing out of the University of South Carolina. And we kind of just adopted kind of that situation. And me having young kids at the time and wanting to indoctrinate them, not being in kind of Tech country, and just have them a certain familiarity with kind of the Tech and that legacy. I wanted that to start with them early and then be familiar with it. So it was like, all right, well, let's try to tackle this project. Woody was doing great. I was so proud of, his time and tenure at Virginia Tech and what he did for help, for the university and his time playing there and the relationships he created. And, we felt like, look, he was a great kid there. He laid it down, and we want to, I have a legacy there as well. Although it's been in, a long time, he was kind of more new blood in that when there was some time for us to stick our foot back in there and take advantage of some of that legacy thing. And, football is a funny deal, right? It's like, it's a marriage. I tell guys this all the time. Only thing about this marriage is you're going to come home one day and she's going to be gone, and you don't know when though. You know what I mean? Like, you don't know when she's going to be gone. You dig what I'm saying? Like, you can kind of guess and maybe think, but it could be like tomorrow. You come home and she ain't there. You know what I mean? So it's like preparing yourself for, post-career things and trying to create different income streams through things you're passionate about and that have meaning to you so that it's not really work, right? So Vicktory Life is, something that you're passionate about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you probably be doing it without, any other things around it, but there's value there. You're providing something to the community. We need it, you know what I mean, to control our legacy and control our narratives. And, who else is talking to James and Woody and these other 50 guys if it ain't, Vic, you know what I mean? So, it's very important, it fills a role, and that's kind of what we were trying to do, just fill a void. And, as it relates to reading and to book reading, make that cool. There's so many statistics surrounded around early childhood reading and that child having success. And, that's what it's about, the next generation of kids. And we want them to be successful and we want them to be Hokies, and to come up and, because we're proud of our university and where we went to school at.
No question. How can people purchase this, man? And how can they book once COVID is contained, how can they purchase this book and how can they book a reading?
We have a website. It's called justagobbler.com. You can also find it on Amazon, justagobbler.com. And there's some info there, contact page. You can put your information. If you're a teacher, media person at a school or something along that line, want to do a virtual reading or things along that line, we'd be more than happy to get out there and spread this message of, having self-confidence and believing in yourself and, kind of never giving up, on how you feel about yourself. So justagobbler.com, justagobbler.com.
Awesome. Great, man. Well, Woody and Jim, this is the part of our show where we wrap up, where I allow my guests to shed some insight and reflection, some perspective. It's my favorite part of the show because I love this, because guys and women, they get real deep. There's no pressure, but this is your final thought for your legacy spotlight, Woody. We'll start with you first. You mentioned you can't go back and you don't live in the past, and you got to live with regrets, and it made you the man you are, whether it was a shortcoming, a mistake, or a successful moment. When you talk to the up and coming Woody Barons, or even your cousins, your uncle's son, or just a group of young men who are playing college ball or they want to write their own book, what is your journey, throughout so far, your life so far taught you? And what are some of the life lessons you want to pass on to those watching this podcast, this Legacy Spotlight?
Yeah. Honestly, I probably think about this question very frequently. Because I got a younger brother. He just started going to the University of Tennessee. And so I have a lot of these conversations with him, and I'm thinking about how I want to filter what I tell him, because I don't want to just give him all of my experience, because I don't know if that's necessarily, I don't want to have too hard of a grip on, his experiences as a young man and him growing up. A lot of it is going to be, as soon as you step out the nest, it's just, the decisions that you make. And so I think about this a ton, and I think about what I would tell myself back at this age. And really the thing that sticks with me, and I told my younger brother this in his recruitment, because everybody's telling him, especially coming out of the Blacksburg fan base, you got a legacy at the school. Why would you not go here? All these coaches. You got your brother who just graduated, who did well, and your uncle went there. It just seems like a layup. And I'm telling them, look, man, don't feel like you have to. Don't feel like I'm making this decision for you, and that's kind of football specific. But as an adult, and here's the message: there are no wrong decisions. once you know better, you do better. There are no wrong decisions. What you have to do is make a decision. That's the hardest thing sometimes for me as an adult has been to make that decision, and you deal with the consequences. The consequences are going to teach you lessons one way or the other. And so to the younger, up and coming Woodies out there, I say just, keep your eye on whatever your heart tells you the prize is, and continue to put your best foot forward in that direction. And, just make decisions that you think are going to get you closer to happiness. And, trust your heart along the way, trust your gut, and just learn from the journey.
Yes, absolutely. Well said, man. Jim, same question, man. If you could talk to, you talk about, some of the mistakes and maturity aspects you weren't ready for in life, and how, you've been through hell and back, but you persevered, you're resilient, and, now you provide the insight. And if you could be talking to a younger Jim Barron, or you have 3 sons, and I know you hit them with jewels as well, but even beyond your family, what has life taught you so far beyond the field, the life lessons, and what do you want to pass on to the young men behind you that could be eventually authors or entrepreneurs or athletes or leaders, like yourself and Woody? What do you say to them?
I mean, for me, it's pretty simple in regards to there's no shortcuts, right? You got to put in the work, right? Nobody's going to hand you anything, and generally if they handing you something, it's not for your betterment. You know what I mean? It's not trying to develop you in a certain kind of way. So, not too many people, of course, you're going to have family members and people close to you who care. But as a man or any individual, you got to put in the work. If you want something, you can't circumvent the process. You got to put in the work, and, you reap what you sow, kind of thing. And so I didn't always make the right decisions, but you do got control over your own decisions. And like Woody said, better, you do better. So as I learned and I came on along the line, and, I got exposed to some different things, I grew, right? It's about growth. And so, but through all of that, I always worked hard, and when I got in a situation to put the work in, I just worked as hard as I could, and, stayed believing in myself. You got to have a lot of belief in yourself. And even when it's hard and there's a lot of doubt, football is one of those things, sports period, anything, that you're going to hit a point where it's going to be rough. And, you're going to have some self-doubt there. And do I want to keep going? And just have some perseverance and continue to work hard. And good things come out of hard work, period.
Very true, man. Enough said on that, because you both dropped gems right there, man. And I'm just grateful to have you both on, man. It's crazy how life goes, man, when you're a 19-year-old, 18-year-old, and, you think and then you grow and learn. And the insight both James, you and Woody provided tonight has been very insightful. And the name of the book is Just a Gobbler. Go out and support it, please, because it's a great read. It's also great to have these 2 insightful men on this show today.
And we appreciate you too, bro. You're an inspiration, you know what I mean? And the things that you're doing as it relates to this legacy and protecting it. And, it really means a lot to a lot of different people, more than you know. So just carrying that message, telling these stories, running with these narratives, it's important. It's one of my favorite things to watch online, or to be a part of. Obviously, and not even the people that I know. This is other people that I don't even know I'm watching, and find myself watching and get involved with. So continue the good work, man. We're very proud as well.
Thank you so much. And it means a lot coming from you, man, because I learned so much from you and the other guys when I was at Tech, man. And Woody, I loved watching you play, and I love your insight. And shout out to your brother at Tennessee, man. When a young man can go off and fulfill his dream academically and athletically, he can become a man and pass on the legacy and knowledge you guys have given him. That's a blessing. So again, thank you both for jumping on the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. This has been another great show. Thank you to all the people that support Woody and Jim Barron, and to the Barron family, thank you. And to all the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight supporters, I say this every episode, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a positive impact and you leave a great legacy. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Appreciate it, bro.
Sir.
Thank you.